How's it going, truth seekers, skeptics, and anyone else who may be listening? This is Designated X, a channel dedicated to bringing the very best of the unexplained. I'm back again with an odd, unexplained, and hair-raising account of the unnatural. Before I start though, if you could please hit that like and subscribe button and share this post on social media or with any like-minded individuals, it sure would help a lot and I'd definitely appreciate it. Thank you all. Alright, let's get going.
Are you familiar with the so-called X-Files?
I believe they have to do with unexplained phenomena.
When convention and science offer us no answers, might we not finally turn to the fantastic as a plausibility?
Logically, I would have to say no.
Good morning, YouTube. How's everyone doing? I have for you an article out of Scientific American. It's a pretty accredited scientific journal or publication, whatever you want to call it. And this is in regards to alien life and, for example, SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. And the article is basically, well, you know what? Let me just get right on into it. Alien hunters discover mysterious signal from Proxima Centauri. Strange radio transmissions appear to be coming from our nearest star system. Now scientists are trying to work out what is sending them. By Jonathan O'Callaghan and Lee Billings, December 18th, 2020. So it's a couple of days old now. It's never aliens until it is. Today, news leaked in the British newspaper The Guardian of a mysterious signal coming from the closest star to our own, Proxima Centauri, a star too dim to see from Earth with the naked eye that is nevertheless a cosmic stone's throw away at just 4.2 light years. Found this autumn in archival data gathered last year, the signal appears to emanate from the direction of our neighboring star and cannot yet be dismissed as Earth-based interference, raising the very faint prospect that it is a transmission from some form of advanced extraterrestrial intelligence, ETI, a so-called techno-signature. Now, speaking to Scientific American, the scientists behind the discovery caution there is still much work to be done, but admit the interest is justified. It has some particular properties that caused it to pass many of our checks, and we cannot yet explain it, says Andrew Simeon from the University of California, Berkeley. Most curiously, it occupies a very narrow band of the radio spectrum, 982 megahertz specifically, which is a region typically bereft of transmissions from human-made satellites and spacecraft. We don't know of any natural way to compress electromagnetic energy into a single bin in frequency such as this one, Simeon says. Perhaps, he says, some as yet unknown exotic quirk of plasma physics could be a natural explanation for the tantalizingly concentrated radio waves, but for the moment, the only source that we know of is technological. The detection was made by a $100 million project called Breakthrough Listen, led by Simeon and funded by tech millionaire Yuri Milner under the umbrella of Milner's Breakthrough Initiatives. The goal of this multi-year endeavor, which began in 2015 with a star-studded announcements attended by Stephen Hawking and other space science luminaries, is to buy observing time on radio telescopes around the world to search the skies for evidence of technological civilizations. That pursuit, of course, is more commonly known as the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, or SETI. To date, no such evidence has conclusively been found despite more than half a century of modest but steady SETI activity, with any potential signals almost always ruled out as originating from satellites orbiting Earth or other human-caused interference. If you see such a signal and it's not coming from the surface of Earth, you know you have detected extraterrestrial technology, says Jason Wright, a SETI-centric astronomer at Penn State University in Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, humans have launched a lot of extraterrestrial technology. The story of this latest SETI spectacle really began on April 29, 2019, when scientists affiliated with Breakthrough Listen started collecting the data that would later reveal the intriguing signal. A team had been using the Parkes radio telescope in Australia to study Proxima Centauri for signs of flares coming from the red dwarf star, in part to understand how such flares might affect Proxima's planets. The system hosts at least two worlds. The first, dubbed Proxima b upon its discovery in 2016, is about 1.2 times the size of Earth and in an 11-day orbit. Proxima b resides in the star's habitable zone, a hazily defined sector in which liquid water could exist upon a rocky planet's surface, provided, that is, Proxima Centauri's intense stellar flares have not sputtered away a world's atmosphere. Another planet, the roughly 7 Earth mass Proxima c, was discovered in 2019 in a frigid 5.2-year orbit. Using Parkes, the astronomers had observed the star for 26 hours as part of their stellar flare study, but, as is routine within the Breakthrough Listen project, they also flagged the resulting data for a later look to seek out any candidate SETI signals. The task fell to a young intern in Simeon's SETI program at Berkeley, Shane Smith, who is also a teaching assistant at Hillsdale College in Michigan. Smith began sifting through the data in June of this year, but it was not until the late October that he stumbled upon the curious narrowband emission, needle sharp at 982.002 megahertz, hidden in plain view in the Proxima Centauri observations. From there, things happened fast, with good reason. It's the most exciting signal that we've found in the Breakthrough Listen project, because we haven't had a signal jump through this many of our filters before, says Sophia Sheikh from Penn State University, who helmed the subsequent analysis of the signal for Breakthrough Listen and is the lead author of an upcoming paper detailing that work, which will be published in early 2021. Soon, the team began calling the signal by a more formal name, BLC1, for Breakthrough Listen Candidate 1. To pique any SETI researcher's interest, a signal must first endure a barrage of simple automated tests to rule out obvious terrestrial interference. Hundreds of candidates, however, routinely pass this phase and are signaled out for further investigation. From there, almost all will be dismissed as some mirage of error, perhaps an excess of static, for instance, that fooled the winnowing algorithm, eliminating them from consideration as any sort of transmission from talkative aliens. Except this one, Sheikh says. Revisiting the data from 2019, Sheikh and her colleagues noted that the telescope had looked at Proxima multiple times in scans lasting 30 minutes over the course of a week. Breakthrough Listen uses a technique called nodding, where the telescope will spend a period of time looking at a target and then an equivalent period looking elsewhere in the sky to check that any potential signal is truly coming from the target and not, say, someone microwaving their lunch in an observatory's cafeteria. In 5 of the 30-minute observations, over about 3 hours, we see this thing come back, Sheikh says. A hint that the signal indeed originated from Proxima Centauri, or some other deep space source in that part of the sky, before making its way to Earth. One might think, then, that the case would be closed. But while a natural cosmic source may seem unlikely, it cannot yet be ruled out, and the thinking goes, as unlikely as a natural explanation might be, an unnatural explanation, such as aliens, is even less likely still. Consequently, every member of the Breakthrough Listen team interviewed for this article steadfastly insists the chance of this being anything other than terrestrial interference is exceedingly remote. The most likely thing is that it's some human cause, says Pete Warden, executive director of the Breakthrough Initiatives, and when I say most likely, it's like 99.9%. That rational skepticism extends all the way to the top. When we launched Breakthrough Listen with Stephen Hawking in 2015, Milner says, it was understood that the most rigorous scientific approach will be used to analyze all candidate signals. Milner, and seemingly all the SETI researchers his funding supports, fully expect BLC-1 to wither away under the project's now intense scrutiny. But, just maybe, it won't. For the time being, months of further analysis are in store to definitively rule out other potential sources, and BLC-1 itself, while seeming to come from Proxima Centauri, does not quite fit expectations for a technosignature from that system. First, the signal bears no trace of modulation, tweaks to its properties that can be used to convey information. BLC-1 is, for all intents and purposes, just a tone, just one note, Simeon says. It has absolutely no additional features that we can discern at this point. And second, the signal drifts, meaning that it appears to be changing very slightly in frequency, an effect that could be due to the motion of our planet or of a moving extraterrestrial source such as a transmitter on the surface of one of the Proxima Centauri's worlds. But the drift is the reverse of what one would naively expect for a signal originating from a world twirling around our sun's nearest neighboring star. We would expect the signal to be going down in frequency, like a trombone, Sheik says. What we see instead is like a slide whistle. The frequency goes up. So far, follow-up observations using Parkes have failed to turn up the signal again, with the repeat observation being a necessity to confirm that BLC-1 is a genuine technosignature. If it's an ETI, it must eventually be replicable, because it's unlikely it would be a one-off, says Shami Chatterjee, a radio astronomer from Cornell University in New York. If an independent team at an independent observatory can recover the same signal, then hell yes, I would bet money that they won't, but I would love to be wrong. Nonetheless, it remains one of the most intriguing signals found by the Breakthrough Listen, or indeed any SETI program, to date. One that Sheik compares to the so-called WOW signal detected in 1977, which is quite famous. I suppose I should do a video on it, but I just assumed everyone watching these videos already knew about it. Anyways, to continue, compares to the so-called WOW signal detected in 1977, which some believe to be of extraterrestrial origin. I think it's on par with the WOW signal, she says. More likely than not, however, this is simply some previously unknown source of Earth-based interference. In a few months, we'll likely know for certain, one way or another. But for the time being, it's never aliens, right? I hate that phrase, because if you say that, then why even look, Wright says. What we mean by that is, it's never been aliens before. Jonathan O'Callaghan is a freelance journalist covering commercial spaceflight, space exploration, astrophysics, and a wide range of science. Lee Billings is the senior editor for space and physics at Scientific American. And there you have it. Quite an interesting little article. I suppose, in a way, it's big news, yet it could also be no news at the same time. I'm leaning towards it's probably just some unknown interference man-made. However, that's just because I, like the scientists, choose to approach everything with a healthy amount of skepticism. But I also totally agree, as someone who's fascinated by ancient aliens and cryptids and all kinds of mysteries, I agree with the author that what's the point in saying we'll never find them or it'll never be this? What's the point of even looking if we truly believe that? So I think we should always analyze everything logically, apply what we know in life, our own life experiences to it, always consider the sources, and then with all that information, come up with our own conclusions based on the evidence. As always, let me know what you make of this down in the comments section. If you have an account or personal encounter of anything odd and unexplained, whether it be ghostly visitors, a sinister stranger, cryptid or unknown entity encounters, demonic or angelic visitation, extraterrestrial contact, or anything else unexplained, feel free to contact me with your account by sending an email to designatedxshow@gmail.com. See you in the next one. Peace.
Bago,